In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, taking a look at some very impressive low pressure systems crossing the nation. One of which is one of the strongest low pressure systems I've ever seen during this time of year. So we're going to be taking a look at that, and this will bring about some severe weather threats, of course, underneath it. And we're going to be looking at numerous of those over the coming weeks for a lot of the central and eastern United States. With that very strong low, there will also be the risk of a very major snowstorm, if not even blizzard, for parts of the plains and Midwest that we're going to be looking at as well with that. Some models showing some snowfall in the eastern states, but we've talked about this over the past few days that really we're going to be in an overwhelmingly warm pattern probably throughout the majority, if not almost all of March from this point forward. So it's going to be pretty hard to come by eastern snowfall, but we will, of course, address those threats as we work our way through. Before we dive into things, be sure to check out my brand new vlog. We saw a foot of snowfall, the biggest snowstorm I have seen in very many years here in southeastern Virginia. It was absolutely incredible. We played with the dog in the snow. We kind of document the whole snowstorm as it happened. We did have a very heavy shower that was almost a thunderstorm, just was a little bit too cold. We showed that as well. We had very strong winds. Actually, the upcoming vlog that I'm filming now, we did have a very intense thunderstorm. It was actually like a couple of thunderstorms in one day where we had an enhanced risk, so that was very cool. The vlog channel is relatively weather related, but I also dive into just some regular life stuff as well. So please check it out. Your support means so much. If you like the video, comment and subscribe. That would mean the world to me, and you guys have been so awesome. It's on the top right corner of your screen, description and pinned comment down below. Let's just dive into things. Here's the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, and what we're seeing is below average temperatures in the west here. This does extend all the way up to Alaska, as you can see on the bottom left. And we call this a negative PNA when we have these really cold temperatures along the western seaboard. And this forces the warm air to move into these central parts and these eastern parts. And we expect this, like I said, to happen for almost the entire month of March, potentially. As we take a look at the precipitation, we can see that there's a few areas dealing with some very far above average precipitation, including the west, where we have a lot of storms moving on shore. A lot of these lows are going to move past the Rockies and then kind of ricochet northward, just like this. They are going to develop cold fronts and severe weather events underneath them, and that's why we get a lot of this precipitation underneath the track of those lows. And I would say this is the average storm track that we're going to be seeing. So again, this is going to bring a lot of precipitation to the west. As this low tracks over the Great Lakes and Midwest and Northern Plains, it's going to bring a lot up there. And then for the east, we get a lot of these cold fronts that are going to be high precipitation. So that's why we're seeing a lot of above average here. We can see for Texas and Oklahoma, it will be pretty much below average precipitation for the most part. A little bit drier down there, although I am eyeballing some severe weather threats. Overall, some active thunderstorms down there are going to be happening at times. It's just mostly drier because no true low pressure systems are moving through that specific area. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 8 to 14 day period, and we can see this continued cold out west, again, negative PNA, and we see this forces the warmth into a lot of the eastern states through the 16th into the 22nd. So already pretty deep into the month of March. Precipitation is relatively similar. We do see above average amounts for a lot of the west, and then for a lot of the east as well. We kind of lose the northern plains aspect of it, and we do see an expansion of the south central drier area, but kind of the same idea as the 6 to 10 day range as well. Here's the 3 to 4 week outlook, which was posted by the Climate Prediction Center just yesterday. We can see equal chances over the west with colder than normal conditions over Alaska. I talked about this yesterday, but I really feel like this is going to act more as a negative PNA, and certainly the warmth in the central states and the eastern states reflects that. The timing for this is going to be the 22nd through the 4th of April. So this actually closes out the month of March and begins the month of April. It looks very warm here in the eastern 2/3 of the nation. Precipitation, the northwest is above average, as well as this kind of Midwest, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, and northeast corner of the nation. So more activity coming in late in March and into early April. But this below average area for the south central states doesn't get any better. And if anything, it might even get a little bit worse here as we're approaching the ending of March into the beginning of April. Let's take a look at how the past 7 days have gone, and overall we've seen cooler than normal conditions over the past 7 days Over the southwest, this has caused above normal conditions for a lot of the Rockies and the plains here, even up into the Midwest. We have seen some cooler than normal conditions in the east here, but this is going to continue to move basically in a warmer direction as we see the warmth even intrude this area very, very soon. Coming up in like 3 or 4 days, we're going to see a big time flip. So let's take a look at the European model here. We do have this storm over the south central states, the area that we actually expect for the most part to be drier. So that is not right now. That's going to be coming up though. We do see a interesting severe weather threat with this as well. And just so you know, this storm, I would say the lowest pressure is somewhere in here. This storm is going to pretty much just move horizontally straight off the eastern seaboard. It does want to kind of move northward after this point, but we really see most of these impacts within this area here. So we're seeing some thunderstorm activity in here, even a marginal risk of severe weather for Oklahoma and Texas there. We do see some thunderstorms also throughout the Gulf Coast states like Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. As we just reach towards tomorrow, which will be Sunday, March 9th, we do see this thunderstorm and severe weather threat. Pretty slim severe weather threat, but it is there, so be mindful. But we do see thunderstorms spread further eastward for, again, the Gulf Coast, even some of the southeast coast, and then the northern areas of these Gulf states as well, seeing that thunderstorm activity and precipitation overall. As we reach towards Monday the 10th, we enter into a bit of a quieter pattern. We still are seeing some southeast activity again, maybe some thunderstorms in there, although it's to the north of the low, so this will be a limited threat in my opinion. We do see some snow showers and rain showers here across the northwest, but still a relatively quiet pattern. I promise you it doesn't stay this way the whole model run, because we are moving from this type of a pattern into an extremely active one here momentarily, actually. So let's just take it towards Tuesday on the 11th. Again, still much quieter. As we reach towards Wednesday the 12th, this is when things start to really get going. Remember, I told you guys these lows move onshore to the west, over the Rockies into the plains, and then they're kind of moving northeasterly from that point. So we're now getting a storm system, a couple of low pressure systems around, moving in, and they're going to consolidate in a similar fashion to that arrow I drew. And we're seeing rainfall for the obvious areas, snowfall for the more mountainous areas. And the snowfall over the coming weeks is going to be out of this world. It is going to be just insane. As we keep going towards Thursday, we see this storm in the west worsens. Rainfall still in the lower elevation areas, snowfall for most of these mountainous areas, and probably even some lower elevation areas as well, as we've gotten colder and colder air moving in. Regardless, heavy mountainous snowfall out there as we reach towards Thursday the 13th. Friday the 14th here, though, is when things get really, really interesting. Just about 5 or 6 days from now, we see a 978 millibar low pressure center between Colorado and Kansas. Some models even trending at this one being in the 960s, which I've heard from some people would be record breaking for this time of year. But obviously, we have had stronger lows in the springtime. This is just really, really insane. It's equivalent to like a probably category 2 hurricane. Obviously, the impacts will be a bit different, but the intensity of that low is more on par with what you would see in some stronger tropical systems. So impressive, to say the least. This is going to affect the Rockies in a big way, even the northern plains, with heavy snowfall, probably strong winds, and that's why we could see some blizzard conditions in there from a storm such as this one. Also, for this Friday date, we will be watching this Friday evening, the 14th, for potential thunderstorms flaring up to the east of that strong low and to the southeast of that strong low. This will probably be a pretty big severe weather event, if you ask me. We're still working out the finer details, just like we did with the last one, but I suspect that we're going to see at least an enhanced risk in here for this one, obviously. Could be quite a bit worse as well. Let's take a look at what happens as we move towards the evening, because we just see an explosion of thunderstorms from states like Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Kentucky, Tennessee, Illinois, Missouri, Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota. All of these states dealing with this thunderstorm activity at the least, and probably severe weather in some of those spots as well. Really an intense system. And as you can see, this low is all the way over here, 977. We are getting more low pressure for the western seaboard again, so activity back on the upswing out west again. Now, As we keep going towards Saturday afternoon, we see that this low is somewhere near Minnesota. So again, it's taking a track, something like this, right on par with that arrow we drew in the beginning of the video. And we see this really intense cold front look. It's bowed out, and they do this sometimes, especially in stronger lows with a warm front out here. And we are seeing likely a big time thunderstorm and severe weather event within this area. More likely, we're seeing pockets in here and here dealing with the most severe weather, but it's really hard to say. It could be widespread throughout this area. As we keep going, I'm going to take us towards Sunday now. Sunday afternoon, we see this low is still over the Great Lakes, and that cold front has outpaced the low. So we see our cold front is somewhere in this pocket. We can also see the colder air pulling in behind it, so that is moving in a hurry. And we get this really, really intense warm push up the eastern seaboard. So whenever we have this warm air moving vertically up the east coast, and then from the side horizontally, we have cold and dry air interacting with it, that is some of our bigger severe weather events. That dynamic is just never good. First off, for instability, but really tornado events as well that can create a lot of shear, that type of sideways motion. So we're watching this area very, very closely, all the way from Florida up, all the way up into New York and even New England and Canada there. We'll have to watch this for Sunday into Sunday evening. And like I said, I mean, our main areas here that we were originally tracking, we do have another low pressure system beginning here for parts of the Northwest, Northern Rockies, Sierra Nevada here. Really, really intense snowfall for those mountain ranges and still rainfall for the lower elevation areas. By Monday, we get a colder day here in the east. Again, those are going to be kind of hard to come by, and we're rapidly going to see us warm back up. The west continues to be active, so let's just take this straight into Tuesday on the 18th. And similarly to our first system that we watched, we originally had a low interacting with the west. And here it is kind of breaking in past the Rockies into Kansas, and it's intensifying. 991 here. Likely we're going to start to see thunderstorms flare up out ahead of it. So let's watch closely what happens that evening. And we see this just explosion once again, and we're down into the 980s, 984. So back-to-back stronger systems. This is a very strong system. It's just kind of overshadowed by that one before it, which was in the 970s. But 980s is a very strong low pressure system. So back-to-back major potential severe weather threats, and we are seeing, I would say, primarily on this particular model, and things could change, of course, but Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, and then probably into Illinois is the main area that I'm seeing on screen here for severe weather, and likely a very intense snow system here for the upper Midwest, northern plains, and into the Great Lakes to the north of this very intense low. As we move towards Wednesday afternoon on the 19th, similarly, 984 starts to lag behind. We get this elongated cold front with the warm front out ahead of things. So we're getting this warm push up the East Coast, and colder, drier air is getting swooped in underneath that low, moving in with that cold front, which is going to cause instability, rotation, just all sorts of bad stuff. Likely thunderstorms and even severe weather happening in this column of the storm. And we're getting even heavier snowfall for the upper Midwest into the Great Lakes here by Wednesday the 19th. It is very far out, though, like I mentioned. Thursday the 20th, likely we're seeing thunderstorms all the way from Texas eastward through all of the Gulf states and even up a bit of the southeast coast here. As this colder air is now moving in primarily from the north, and we have precipitation to the south, this would likely lessen the severe weather threat, this kind of north to south motion, instead of that warm air vertically climbing up the east, but still probably would pose a threat, and for the most part could look quite a bit different. On Friday, we get another one of those cold eastern days that are hard to come by in the upcoming pattern, and already by Saturday, it's lifting off. What's interesting is these models also want to kind of bring nor'easters into the mix. I mean, they're trying desperately to get something to form in the Gulf there, move off of Florida and move up. But because of the current flow, we watch these lines, they're all moving directly offshore. What do you think the storm's going to do? It's obviously not going to climb up the east coast and go against the grain of the wind gradient there. It's going to kind of just horizontally move offshore. So let's watch it closely. And yeah, it just wants to move straight off instead of trying to move against that wind. So things could change in a huge way. I mean, when we're looking at hours 360, this could just be non-existent by the next model run. So really, really tough to say. Snowfall for the mountainous northwest, rainfall in the lower elevation areas to end that model run. The GFS model, we're going to try to pinpoint some of the bigger threats here. Just see some differences. So let's take a look We get that initial low moving through the south. Then the west gets active around, especially Wednesday to Thursday, the 12th into the 13th. It lasts to the 14th, where by the afternoon, 968 millibar low pressure center here over Kansas, and we're getting thunderstorms flaring up even earlier on this model for states such as these. I mean, the same ones that we saw on the European model. 968, an even stronger low pressure system. By that evening, we can tell this is going to be about 2 a.m. on Saturday, March 15th. We're getting worsening thunderstorm impacts for the Midwest down into the deeper south. 975, so it has weakened a little bit, but we're getting even heavier snowfall in this model, especially for the Rockies into the northern plains. Really could bring about blizzard conditions. We see by the time we're reaching Saturday the 15th, the high temperatures here. We're seeing mostly those Gulf states into parts of the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and Great Lakes here dealing with these intense thunderstorms and even severe weather. By the time we reach Sunday afternoon on the 16th, we see this low as a 987 just to the east of the southern tip of the Hudson Bay, and we're seeing thunderstorms up and down this kind of eastern seaboard area by that afternoon. We keep going, and again, we get this second very intense low there over the Great Lakes around the just before the 20th time frame, and we're getting this thunderstorm and severe weather activity here across these portions of the nation. Snowfall for the upper Midwest and parts of Canada. Really, really interesting. As we keep going, we do get another snow system, kind of a clipper that moves through parts of the Midwest, Great Lakes, and into the east, but we're beyond hours 240 here, so I'd take it with a grain of salt. Interestingly, we see a low move through the southwest here around the 22nd, and that does move off of the Rockies into parts of the plains here. By Sunday the 23rd, this is going to be a 994, and likely this would be another thunderstorm threat, especially out ahead of that low. Really, really interesting to see a third one popping up on this particular model. Let's take a look at the total precipitation. We do see a whole lot out west. As you can see, especially along this northwest coast, just tons and tons of precipitation. The upper Midwest, the Great Lakes get a lot, and then the east and the Gulf states get also plenty of rainfall. When we look at the total precipitation anomalies, we do see above average amounts for almost all of the west here. All of kind of like the upper Midwest and Great Lakes area there as well, and then parts of the southeast. The driest pocket here is from Texas and Oklahoma, northeastward into the Ohio Valley, and there is a little bit of a precipitation hole for the northern half of the eastern seaboard there as well. Total snowfall in the European model, we do get a whole lot with these major lows for the Great Lakes, Midwest, and northern plains. And the west, I mean, we are seeing feet of snowfall for all of these mountain ranges. But the east, with these warmer conditions, we really don't see much in the way of anything south of the New England mountains, really. And we end up just being very warm, rainy, but not snowy whatsoever. The GFS model, gonna disagree a little bit. It gets some going for the Mid-Atlantic and southern New England here, but still nothing crazy. And a lot of this is happening almost at the end of the model run, so definitely take it with a grain of salt. Could look a whole lot different by the time we're getting there, and probably, to be honest, will. Now that's it for this video, guys. We upload every single day, so be sure to subscribe. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.